one shining moment. We all know it as the theme song for the NCAA tournament, and it takes one shining moment. We've seen it with guys like Kemba Walker. We've seen it Gordon Hayward. We've seen it with a numerous amount of players. Steph Curry came blasting on the scene with Davidson. One shining moment. Max Abbas last year for Oral Roberts as they were a 15 seed and knocked off a couple of teams. And the guy averaged nearly 30 points last year. So we know it takes one shining moment. And for one shining team, it is time to look at the school and their coach and ask ourselves a real question. Is the head coach of Gonzaga, Mark Few, a great coach or a coach that is great at taking advantage of the situation? And if I have to look you in the eyes and I have to answer that question, now, you might look at me back and say this is the typical overreaction from the media, from the fans, to sit there and say they choked yet again and I'm blowing it out of proportion. And you may be right, because Mark Few is a good coach. I don't know if he's a great coach. And I think at this point in stage, we need to take a look at him and say Mark Few and this Gonzaga program is overrated. Mark Few has been with Gonzaga and coaching Gonzaga for 23 years now. They have a .836 win percentage under Mark Few. They have been a automatic 25 win program, 21 out of the last 23 years. They have been a ranked school for almost every single year under Mark Few. Almost every single year. 16 out of the 23 years they were ranked in the AP poll. And if you take a look at some point in Mark Few's season, only one time in his second season were they not ranked in the top 25 at some point during the season. And the last 2 years, this Gonzaga team has not only been a number one seed in the NCAA tournament, they have been a number one overall when it comes to the AP poll. But when push comes to shove, they have not been able to get over the hump. They have now lost twice in the NCAA championship game. They have now lost twice under Mark Few. They choked yet again as a number one seed. Last year, they lost to Baylor in the championship game. This year, they lost to Arkansas as a number one overall seed to an Arkansas team that is very good. They are a very good team. They are number 4 seed. They have beaten a number 1 seed before. They beat Auburn earlier in the year when they were ranked number 1 in the AP polls. But this Arkansas team had a lot of holes. They played up to their competition, but at the end of the day, they weren't a great team overall. But it is time to look at Mark Few, where 4 out of the last 5 times they have been ranked as a number 1 seed and have yet to win a championship. They don't have a championship to show for it. 23 years of Mark Few, and they don't have a championship to show for it. Guaranteed 25 wins a season, no championship to show for it. And I think we really need to take a look into why that is. Look at the division that they play in. In the WCC, the West Coast Conference, they play the likes of St. Mary's, who are on and off ranked every once in a while. They're a decent NCAA tournament team, nothing to write home about. Santa Clara, San Francisco, BYU, Portland, San Diego, Pacific, Loyola, Marymount, and the infamous Pepperdine. Pepperdine. We don't even know how to say the school name. Pepperdine. Yeah, these are the kind of opponents that they face 13, 14 times a year. And you take a look at this team. Every single year under Mark Few, they have won at least 11 games in their conference. That is ridiculously unheard of. Let me just take you since 2016, over the last 6 years. Let's go from 2016 to 2022. 2016, they went 17-1 in the conference. 2017, 17-1. 2018, 16-0. 2019, 15-1. 2020, 15-0. 2022, 13-1. In fact, you take a look at Mark Few's record divisionally, conferencely. They have lost no more than 3 games in conference every single season. Guaranteed 11 wins every single season within the conference. So they are almost halfway to 25 wins just because of their in-conference schedule. Now, they have been, scheduling some tougher out-of-conference opponents, and I give them pride for that, for doing that. But when push comes to shove, when you're not facing Pepperdine, San Francisco, Pacific, when you're not facing those teams in the NCAA, and you're going against the likes of UCLA, North Carolina, Texas, Duke, Arkansas, Tennessee, or whatever the case may be, when you're going against some of the powerhouse schools, the powerhouse conferences, you're no longer in the WCC. You're in the NCAA tournament. You're facing Pac-12 teams. You're facing ACC teams. You're facing SEC teams. You're facing some elite opponents every single game. That's when the pressure mounts and Gonzaga has continued to choke. So I think it's time that we need to realize that Mark Few is not a great coach. He's just a coach that's great at taking advantage of the situation. Because we can all point to the stats. We can see the 836 win percentage, or won 25 plus games, 21 out of the last 23 seasons. They've ranked number 1 the last 2. We can look at all those stats. But guess what? Stats mean absolutely nothing if you don't have the story around it to tell the stats. And that's where the story comes. That they faced the like of Pepperdine, San Francisco, Pacific, BYU. They faced these teams on a fairly nightly basis. Anywhere from 12 to 15 to 18 times a season. They are automatically halfway to 25 wins just based on their conference schedule in the WCC. Mark Few is not a great coach. He's just a coach great at taking advantage of the situation.